I think one of the other symptoms or signs of Moshiach, he doesn't claim to be.
Oh, okay.
If he claims, he's out.
Ah.
It's when the people notice that someone is accomplishing what Moshiach, or only Moshiach, could accomplish, and the people will say, we think you're Moshiach.
Okay.
But any guy who comes and proclaims himself Moshiach, something's wrong.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Well,
We've learned the hard way.
People claim about themselves, the less they
Right.
normally accomplish.
Yeah.
And so there was some, I'm told, I never knew the Rebbe, I'm told there was some idea that he might be Moshiach before he passed, and that would fall in line with what you said. He never made any claims about that, I assume.
He never did, and the expectation or the hope that he would be was well based. He seemed to be accomplishing, not building the temple but if anybody in our time could have been, he certainly qualified. But what people were saying, and it got a little distended, what people were saying is, in every generation, there are many holy people, many leaders, many teachers, but there's always one that kind of stands out, who sets the tone for that generation, for that era.
Okay.
That's called the Moshiach of our generation. So the one leader that helps us survive the exile is the temporary or Moshiach of that generation.
Mm-hmm.
So people were saying that the Rebbe is the Moshiach of our generation.
Okay.
Others say he is the Moses of our generation, because he really set the tone. He set the standard for everybody. Now people got a little carried away and said, no, he wasn't just the Moshiach of our generation, he is the Moshiach. But the Moshiach would have brought peace to the world. We're not there by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not even close.
Right.
Okay. Along the same lines, I've heard that in every generation there is one who potentially could rise up to become the Moshiach.
Right.
Is that a correct statement? Okay. Okay.
And usually it's assumed that the Moshiach of the generation, should we merit and should everything fall into place, he would be the Moshiach.
And in terms of should we merit, that really comes down to how each person is living their life.
How ready is the world for utopia?
Yeah. And so do we help accelerate that in some way by our own actions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So one of the Rebbe's innovative messages was, we're not believing in Moshiach, we're either doing something to make it happen, or you're failing.
Okay.
To sit back and say, yeah, I believe,
is worthless,
Yeah.
essentially. Wow. So put it in action. Put your money where your mouth is if you believe you do.
So here's the correct wording on it. It's not Moshiach will come, like some pipe dream.
Mm-hmm.
Moshiach is coming and has been coming for 2,000 years,
Mm-hmm.
which means it's a process, not a prediction.
Okay.
It's a process. If we get our act together, if we make the world ready and willing, it will happen. So it's been happening. It's a long, tiresome process. But it's an active participation thing, not a sit back and hope.
Okay. Great. Well, one last question, if I may. It has to do with Elijah. Totally changing gears here. But what does the coming of Elijah mean, signify? The last we heard of Elijah, he rode the chariot into heaven. Does he ride a chariot back down? What are we expecting here? And why?
How exactly is he going to do it?
Well, not just the how. That's really less important. But for what purpose? What do we expect out of this? Why is it prophesied?
It doesn't have to be him.
Okay.
But before Moshiach comes, we're going to need a little reorientation. Because how are we going to function if all our problems go away? We're not going to know how to function at all. Mm-hmm. Imagine there's no more war, there's no more jealousy, there's no more competition, you don't have to work to make a living. We'll go nuts.
Yeah.
So we have to rewire our brains to be able to get excited about a perfect world. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to handle this. In fact, even today, the worst time for most human beings is when they have free time. That's when they kill themselves, that's when they get into trouble. The hospitals are full, right, during holidays, because people don't know how to handle time. Keep me busy or I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? So we're going to need a leader, like a prophet, like Elijah, who will reintroduce life in a perfect world, like in the Garden of Eden. So what makes him like Elijah more than any other prophet? That famous story where Elijah said, you can't have it both ways. You either believe in God or you believe in the idol. Pick. Make a decision.
Right.
That's the kind of prophet or the kind of teacher or inspirer that we're going to need before Moshiach comes.
Okay. Referred to as Elijah because he's like Elijah.
Right.
I see.
Elijah-like.
An Elijah-like teacher, prophet.
And that will tell us that Moshiach is very close.
Okay.
So if I were guessing, instead of arguing that the Rebbe is Moshiach, I would argue he was the prophet.
I see.
Because he really turned everything around, got us all oriented to thinking beyond ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's a kind of a messianic kind of thinking.
And inherent in that statement is the notion that whoever it is will not be noticed by the vast majority of humanity. What I mean by that is I had never heard of the Rebbe until I literally came to this community, and now I've heard some very impressive things. But, 99.9% of humanity has never heard of this man.
And yet is influenced by him.
And so it seems to me that if he wasn't the one sent, then whoever is may very well be, to some degree, obscure. Not obscure, obviously, in the community around him,
but effective.
But in the world.
But effective. If he's not effective.
Certainly effective, yeah. But maybe not well known.
So one of the things